For us starting a little bit late, but thank you for sticking with us. We are here tonight to talk to you about the many aspects of our Open Spaces program, as well as about the potential reauthorization of the Open Spaces sales and use tax. One thing you should be aware of is that we are only taking comments and questions about our Open Spaces programs tonight. So if you have questions or comments about anything else, feel free to send us an email at communicationservices@arapahoegov.com, and we'll make sure that the right people get the answers for you. So to let you know a little bit about how it's going to work, if you're joining us on the phone, you can dial *3, and that will put you through to an operator if you want to ask a question, and they'll put you in the queue for when we open it up to the audience portion of the event. The commissioner also will be joined by two special guests from his district that will talk about their experiences with our Open Spaces programs and their outlook on the future of it, particularly in the District 3 portion of the county, so your area of the county. If you're watching online and you want to type a question into the comments box, we can take those as well. And I'll also be asking you a couple of polling questions that are more general. So with that, I will introduce Commissioner Jeff Baker. Commissioner Baker, can you refresh your... Yeah, I see him now. There we go.
Wow, I don't know what's wrong.
Can you hear me now?
I hear you.
Okay. Tech support, are we good to go on this? Okay. So, Commissioner?
Yeah.
Go ahead and start your portion of the script. I think we're okay.
Okay, great. Thank you, everyone, for joining us. As we learned during the pandemic, having access to open space, parks, and trails is one of the best things about living here in Colorado. In Arapahoe County, we've spent the past few decades building and enhancing all of our open spaces programs and assets. These are funded by our open space sales and use tax, which is a 1/4, hearing a lot of feedback, is a 1/4 of 1 cent tax on retail sales in the county that has generated revenue for these programs all the way since 2004. The county uses this revenue to fund our open spaces directly, and we also share it with communities and special districts to fund their own projects and programs. As a direct result of this revenue stream, Arapahoe County Open Spaces now owns and maintains 15 parks and open spaces across the county, spanning more than 5,000 acres, 4 trailheads, and more than 20 miles of trails. Voters approved this sales tax to be reauthorized in 2011, and the tax is set to expire again in 2023. With that deadline in mind, the board is considering whether to send a ballot measure to voters this fall that would ask for another reauthorization. So that's why we're here with you tonight, to show you how open spaces funding works and talk about its benefits to our residents, visitors, and communities. After Shannon Carter gets done with his PowerPoint presentation, we'll hear from a few of my favorite local elected officials, local officials, about their experiences with the county's open spaces um, assets. Then we'll open it up to your questions. I thank you all for being here again. And now let me introduce our Open Spaces Director, Shannon Carter.
Good evening, everyone, and welcome to our presentation about our Open Spaces program. One of the things that we'd like to kind of give you is an overview, a lot of information, but an overview of what the Open Space program is all about, and of course, how it benefits your community. So let's go to slide number 2. Primarily, the Open Spaces program, and that's through the county as well as our municipal partners, we're trying to do about 3 major things. And this is, of course, really focusing in on outdoor recreation. 1, build and maintain trails. 2, enhance neighborhood and regional parks. And 3, preserve natural and heritage areas. And so when we look at slide number 4, it mentions, or excuse me, I'm sorry, slide number 3. It really, as Commissioner Baker mentioned, the fact that we have so many different parks and trails, 15 parks and open spaces, 4 trailheads, 20 miles of trail. And through our Shareback and Grants program, the Open Spaces program really does help out our local communities. That is our towns, cities, and also special districts with a recreational purpose. The programs that we fund are, of course, through this voter-approved countywide sales and use tax. So not only do we have a lot of different properties that we maintain, but of course, we partner with those agencies to accomplish those goals. Next slide, please. This slide gives you a kind of an indication as far as where the parks and trails and open spaces that the county is responsible for. As you can tell, it's concentrated along the Cherry Creek corridor from the county line all the way up to the border with Denver. So we've got these kind of locating about 13 of our 15 different parks and trails that we're responsible on the right-hand side of your screen. That's the county fairgrounds. That's close to our reservoir. Next slide, please. This gives you an indication as far as some of the holdings within the eastern part of the county. Along Kiowa Bennett Road, we have the Kiowa North open space as well as the Kiowa South open space. That middle green section is our Middle Bijou open space, which we've got a number of different properties that are currently in agricultural production. And the one that's on the far right, that's our Rich Mill Ranch open space, which is, of course, is close to the town of Deer Trail. With that particular one, that's open to the public for trail riding, for walking. It's got picnic shelters. And so we're going to be doing the same thing with the Kiowa North. That's the next open space park that's under development. We're doing a lot of public outreach to be able to open that project up within the next year or so. Next slide, please. But now, of course, one of the things that the Open Spaces program does is it has a large impact on our community. Now, this includes not only the work that the county has done, but also the cities, towns, and special districts. Since its inception, we've built or improved over 70 miles of trails throughout the county, 168 different park, trailhead, or heritage area projects. And again, that's with the county, with special districts, with local communities. Over 31,000 acres of open space have been preserved. Now, to qualify that in regards to the 31,000, that includes conservation easements in which we've partnered with various property owners to preserve certain portions of their property. for conservation purposes, and yet they continue on as working ranches or working farmland. And of course, there are some that are fee simple that our partner agencies have either purchased or set aside, again, for conservation or for open space purposes. And so that 31,000 acres includes both of those. Uh, and of course, we also have done a lot of heritage and education work. The fairgrounds, we built that, as well as helping to restore and preserve the historic 17-mile house that's along Parker Road, just south of Broncos Parkway, close to the county line near Parker Road. So we've done a number of those. And of course, we have our education and cultural events. One big event we just had over this past weekend is, of course, the county fair. And then, as well as we have regular regular tours of the 17-mile house, as well as other activities at that farm park property. We also have the CSU Extension Program that is part of the Open Spaces Department, and they hold all kinds of different educational programs on agriculture, horticulture, 4-H programs, and again, really focus in on education. And of course, we partner with Cherry Creek Stewardship Partners, as well as others for environmental education, and as well as restoration. Next slide, please. But how does this really affect us, you personally? Well, we certainly have done a lot of restoration projects, like, for example, with various conservation easements that I mentioned earlier, but also riparian area restoration. We've done a lot of work along the Cherry Creek corridor, as well as the South Platte corridor, as well as others. Now, what we mean by that is that sometimes creek beds and the sides of various tributaries and creeks, they start to erode in time. And so in order to protect property, control flooding, we go through and we restore it to more of a natural area. There's a good picture of that, some of the work that's being done. The riparian area really is, as you look along the plains, is the areas that has a lot of vegetation around a water source. And so we do a lot of in regard to restoring and making sure that those are environmentally healthy. And of course, they make great wildlife corridors too. We also support active grazing within some of our properties. We lease it out to local ranchers, and they maintain the land and certainly make sure that the ground is very healthy. We've done a number of different safety enhancements to our major regional trails. For example, with some of our underpasses, we just completed the Hampton and Colorado Boulevard underpass along the Highline Canal. We're working on, and as a matter of fact, it's under construction now, the Mississippi and Parker, putting an underpass along the Highline Canal to be able to, again, enhance the safety. And of course, one that was very popular and very much needed was getting underneath Arapahoe Road along the Cherry Creek corridor. And so we've done a lot of safety enhancements and improvements, and there's more to come. Next slide, please. And all of that is done with the voter-approved resolution. This gives you a little bit of an indication. As I mentioned, we partner with our municipalities, our cities and towns. And as a matter of fact, 50% or half the money that we receive in this tax is given back to our local cities, towns through an IGA, and it's based upon population. So larger cities obviously get a larger portion of that 50%. Smaller cities get a smaller portion. And then with the 12% grant program, which cities, towns, and special recreational districts can apply for grants, we've done a number of different projects where we partner with them and they apply for grants and they're able to do capital improvements, trail improvements, they're able to purchase property. And so using that 12% grant program, we're able to impact the community even more. Then we have what we refer to as joint projects. Now, the 26.66% is used for acquisition and development, and we also partner with, again, Mile High flood districts, other cities and towns to be able to do regional projects. For example, a lot of those underpasses that I spoke of earlier, those were part of regional projects that we partnered with a number of different agencies, including Great Outdoors Colorado, CDOT, Dr. Cog, in order to be able to get funding to be able to move those projects forward. We also have 4.1% that's set aside for our designated heritage areas, of which we have two, the historic Mile House, 17 Mile House, as well as the county fairgrounds. And there's a cap on what we can use for administration. There's a 4% cap on administration and a 3.24% cap on maintenance. And we'll talk about that a little bit later. Next slide, please. And so really, here's the report card for the life of the program. The program, again, we started collecting the tax in 2004 because, of course, the voters approved it in November of 2003. So since 2004 to 2020, we've collected almost $360 million of revenue on this quarter cent. And then, of course, we've distributed through shareback, through grants, and through joint projects over almost $260 million that's really gone back into the community. In other words, 71% of what we've collected has actually made a big impact to our community. So again, we've really done quite a bit of work in this area. Next slide, please. But what about us locally? Well, this is a project that we partnered with the town of Bennett for Future Park, and that is a well-used amenity in the Antelope Hills area. Next slide. And of course, there's also the Tollgate Community Park. So it really shows you kind of the diversity of the various, I think I mentioned 168 different park projects. They go from the eastern part of the county to the western part of the county, the northern part of the county to the southern part of the county. So a lot of different community parks, regional parks, neighborhood parks that were able to be improved, created, or enhanced. Next slide, please. But as Commissioner Baker mentioned, that in 2003, the tax was approved with a 10-year sunset. So it was due to expire in 2013. Well, in 2011, the board went to the voters and asked that whether they would support a renewal of the tax, and the voters did. Back in 2011, they voted to extend the tax to 2023. And so we've been doing quite a bit of work over the last year or so. We've updated our master plan, which involved a lot of community outreach. We did a lot of surveys, online, telephone surveys, mail surveys. And so we're gathering community impact, or excuse me, input as to the impact of the program in our community. We've also engaged our Citizen Advisory Board. You'll be hearing from one of those members, writer later on this evening. And so they've really been engaged in talking to the community about, again, the value of the program and, of course, its impact. We've got that ongoing program awareness that we've been doing, but we also established a reauthorization subcommittee. And that involved two commissioners. Commissioner Baker was one of them, and Commissioner Warren Gully was the other, and two members of our Citizen Advisory Board to really take a deeper dive into the program and to really look at how it's been operating, whether it's been a balanced program, and of course to really evaluate the value of the program to our community. We've had special meetings with City Council, other boards, special district boards that really explain and highlight the impact of the tax and, of course, get their input to see if there's any adjustments or changes that they would like to see to the way that we are administering the program as well as the resolution itself. And so the Board of County Commissioners within the next couple of weeks, early in or mid-August, is going to decide whether or not to refer a ballot measure to the voters this coming November. Next slide, please. So what have we heard? Well, we've heard quite a number of things through our surveys, through polling. The support that people have for the program has been somewhat overwhelming. As one of them mentioned, it's a minimal tax for the benefit that we received. It certainly does preserve property, land for future generations. They love the amenities, especially the walking trails and the trail amenities and the safety improvements that we've been able to do with that. So these are just some of the quotes that we received about the sales and use tax. Next slide, please. So as I mentioned, the fact that this small committee really examined the program and made a couple of recommendations that they would like to propose to the board for their consideration. For example, as far as the shareback program, there's a lot of support, not only from our municipal governments, but also from the community to leave that program the way it is. That is not to change the formula. They certainly appreciate the fact that, again, their portion of the tax is returned back to the cities and towns, and they're able to effectively enhance their programs. They like the way that the county was administering the grant program, the formula that's used, the 12%, as well as the eligibility, because it really is geared more towards cities, towns, and special districts with a recreational purpose. They also they are recommended to the board to make this tax permanent. When you think about the acquisition of property, well, that means you're responsible for maintaining it, improving it, making sure that it's actually doing the things that you preserved it for. So they're recommending, because it's a good program, and certainly the citizens and others recognize the benefits of it, they'd like to make, or they're recommending to make it permanent. But they also are recommending that we increase the amount of money that's set aside for maintenance, for improving, for maintaining what we have. That message came across to us loud and clear in our surveys and our polling that, yes, what we have, we want to make sure that it's in good repair, that we maintain what we have. And so that was one of the recommendations, is for both the city and the county to have the ability to dedicate more funding for that particular purpose. Also, they're recommending, of course, to actually refer the measure to the voters in November. So a lot of support for moving that forward. So what are the next steps? Next slide, please. Well, the next steps, and of course this involves you, is to really welcome any questions that you have. We'll have that opportunity later on in our call. The Board of County Commissioners, as I mentioned, will be considering making a decision sometime in the second week in August. And then, of course, we want you to enjoy what we have. We want you to keep enjoying our parks. And so thank you. And of course, I turn it back over to Luke to continue our discussion.
Excellent. Thank you, Shannon. Really good information there. A lot of informative stuff about the expansiveness of our open spaces program. Before we meet our special guests, I want to remind you, if you have a question and you're on the phone, you can dial *3 and that'll put you through to an operator. If you're watching this online, you can type questions into the comments box. And I would also like to ask everyone who's listening to respond to the following polling question. This is if you're on the phone. And the question is, on a scale of 1 to 5, how likely are you to recommend living in the county to someone else? If you're very likely, press 1. If you're somewhat likely, press 2. If you're neutral, press 3. If you're somewhat unlikely, press 4. And if you're very unlikely, press 5. Again, on a scale of 1 to 5, how likely are you to recommend living in Arapahoe County to someone else? 1 is very likely, 2 is somewhat likely, 3 is neutral, 4 is somewhat unlikely, and 5 is very unlikely. So with that, I'm going to have Commissioner Baker introduce our special guests.
Thank you, Luke. We'll get to your questions here in a minute, but before, I'd like to just say welcome to two of the folks that I know very well that have been very involved with our community. Grider Lee is a former member of the Bennett Town Board of Trustees, and he currently serves on our Open Space and Trails Advisory Board. Welcome, Grider.
Thank you,
And
Commissioner.
you betcha. And then I'd also like to introduce Randall Miller. Randy is on our Planning Commission. They're both joining us on the phone tonight. I've got a couple of questions for you guys. The first one is District 3 out in the eastern part of Arapahoe County. Communities have received more than $2.7 million from this sales and use tax since 2004. And they get that by way of grants, joint projects, and the share back. This is in addition to a lot of other projects and properties that we have in that part of the county. Can you take some time, each of you, to talk a little bit about what these funds have enabled us to do in your area, and specifically with open spaces and programs? Grider?
Yes. Well, the communities out in the eastern part of the county are very tiny. I think Bennett and Strasburg are maybe 2,700 people. And honestly, Bennett is a town, Strasburg is not. It's really difficult for towns of that size to have extra money on their own to be able to create some of the nice amenities for children and their grandparents, frankly, who probably relate with those kids a lot, to do some of these things on their own. And that's where these competitive grants come in, where a community can put up an idea that might enhance the community, and then they work with the open space staff to sort of fine tune in a competitive way with communities throughout Arapahoe County to see if their idea can come to fruition. I must say that even though I've served on this OSTAB committee, the Open Space Advisory Committee, before Commissioner Baker came on the scene, there's been a lot of activity in the eastern area since Commissioner Baker took over. I just have to tell you, there was a very rundown park in Byers, Colorado, that was completely rehabbed. One of the nice existing parks in Strasburg was rehabbed on one end and made, very helpful to little kids and so forth. And a regional park in the Arapahoe County portion of Bennett, Colorado. It's actually a very small portion of the town, but in any event, people had been hoping to have a park in that area and urging the developer, the town, the county, whomever, to try to bring that about. And that happened during Commissioner Baker's term. So thank you very much, Commissioner.
Thank you, Grider.
And
I
then,
appreciate
yes, sir. Well, I don't know. I'm sure you might have encouraged the open space folks, but a lot of really positive things have happened during your time, and so it's really been gratifying.
Thank you, Grider. And
In
let me ask
addition-
Randall. Go ahead. Okay, I was going to ask
Thank you.
Randall.
No, Thank you, Commissioner Baker. This is again Randall Miller. Hey, you kind of posed some questions to me, on how I benefited, even just personally from the parks and open space areas that we have out here. I almost kind of wanted to say that I struggle with that because I live deep enough into the county and away from towns that pretty much everything out here is open space. So we have our own personal open spaces, you might say, out here. So I got to thinking about it, though, and it's like, one of the things that we enjoy every year is the county fair. And it is because of the county fair and even our trail system that allows for the 4-H kids to be able to go out and either do photography, do trail riding, do different types of sportsmanship activities. And all these are being able to be done because of what we've done with open space. And that's why I say, this is what I would benefit the most from, is that we get to be able to incorporate all this into the 4-H community. Again, the fairgrounds all come into play. So those are the places where I want to say that, I see it and my neighbors see it, is probably in the 4-H community like that.
Great, thank you, Randall. And I know you've been very involved with the 4-H and especially the shooting sports as well. So that's great, and I know that the fairground supports that, and some of the other open spaces have hosted events out there as well. I think we're going to go ahead and I think we're ready to start taking some questions. I would like Greider and Randall to hang on. We may get questions for them as well. But let's try to open it up now for folks to ask us some questions. You ready for that, Luke?
I am. Thank you, Commissioner. I think that's a great idea. And we do have a couple people queued up already. And I'll give you the results of the first polling question real quickly here. How likely are you to recommend living in the county to someone else? 50% of you say very likely, 15% say somewhat likely, 15% are neutral. 0% so far are somewhat unlikely, and 20% are very unlikely. So if any of you are on the line, I'd love to hear more about, we'd all love to hear more about what we can do to make that number go up for you. Again, if you want to ask a question, dial *3 and you'll be put through to an operator. Let me ask you one more quick polling question if I can. This one is also on a scale of 1 to 5. And actually, you know what? I'm going to do that in a minute. Let's get to the audience questions first. And I'm going to start with a phone question from Dawn, and this is probably for Commissioner Baker and Shannon. And of course, our guests are welcome to chime in. But this is an interesting point about as we spruce up these parks, as we expand the parks. They're running up against another issue that we're facing in the whole Denver metro area. So, Dawn, go ahead. You are live.
I'm concerned about the homeless encampments and the trash and the garbage and the dangerous people at these parks. I was at Parker and Cherry Creek today, and there's dangerous people, there's filth, there's trash, and it seems to be getting worse. Every time I drive down Parker Road, where I used to be able to go into that park and really enjoy it, I don't feel safe there anymore.
Okay. So let's start with Commissioner Baker. What can you tell us about this?
I sure can. The county's doing a couple of different things for homeless folks. We do a really good job of helping families, helping children that are homeless. We've got programs I could talk for hours about. The Goals program being one. It's the former Excelsior campus that's now been converted to being a homeless temporary shelter and homeless place that offers employment. It offers alcohol and drug rehab. It offers all sorts of different services in that one area. We do a really good job with that. Where we don't have any programs is for single adults, both male and female, that are homeless. We're working on that. Both Commissioner Nancy Jackson and I are participating in a program called the Permanent Supportive Housing Toolkit. And it's right now focused on helping the majority of the folks that are transitioning out of a penal institution, out of our jail or out of prisons, and getting them into permanent supportive housing. There's a couple of other programs being done by our municipalities, Englewood and so forth. I'm aware of that tent village that you're talking about there along Parker. And there's a jurisdictional issue there. Part of it is in Aurora, part of it is the State Parks Department, and part of it is Arapahoe County. And we've been trying to get those folks to move out of that. I believe it's a tragedy waiting to happen. I believe that citizens are not going to put up with that very much longer and will take it into their own hands to clear those camps. And that, in fact, has happened before. So I urge everyone to contact the sheriff's office if they do any illegal activity. We don't currently have a ban on camping, and the reason is there's a state law that says that if you want to put into effect a ban on camping, you've got to have a program, a shelter in place that they can be taken to. Shannon, do you have other thoughts?
Yeah, just of course, we are on the receiving end as far as trying to protect the resource, trying to protect our users, and of course, trying to make sure that our, as the caller mentioned, our parks, trails, and open space are in good repair and in good condition. The challenge is just as Commissioner Baker highlighted, uh, the jurisdictional issue of the various different agencies that are responsible come to a head right in those locations. And so, and quite frankly, those individuals know that. And so they sometimes just move to a different jurisdiction to avoid being able to, or avoid having to deal with moving or perhaps cleaning up or what have you. So it's almost a little bit of a game that they play to, okay, well, we'll move from one jurisdiction to another, which is only maybe 10 feet away. And that way we don't have to listen to you, so to speak. And so we've coordinated and tried to get everyone together to try to come up with a solution on there. And one of the other jurisdictions that Commissioner Baker didn't mention was also Colorado Department of Transportation, CDOT. They're in that area also. So trying to really work with the various agencies as well as being able to work with the jurisdictions that are responsible. It's a real challenge. And it's not just in this area, but also in other parts of the metro area, the same situation happens. And so it just takes some time, and we are working on the issue. But of course, the big thing is, where do they go? And that's what Commissioner Baker was talking about in regards to what types of services and what types of programs that we can put in place.
Yeah, thank you both. This is a problem that's happening throughout the metro area, and certainly things like lands like parks and open spaces are logical places for the homeless folks to go. But it's something, at least I think maybe the positive thing might be that there's more awareness of it than there was before. So between the programs we have and the ones that we're discussing, we hope to have a remedy here soon. Before I go to our next caller, I want to ask one more polling question. This one is, how satisfied are you about your interactions with the Arapahoe County government? So if you're very satisfied, press 1. If you're somewhat satisfied, press 2. If you're neutral or it's not applicable because you really haven't had any interactions with us, press 3. If you're somewhat dissatisfied, press 4. And if you're very dissatisfied, press 5. So once again, how satisfied have you been about your interactions with the Arapahoe County government? 1 is very satisfied, 2 is somewhat satisfied, 3 is neutral or not applicable, 4 is somewhat dissatisfied, and 5 is very dissatisfied. So put those questions in. And now I'm going to bring up, this is for Shannon, I believe. This is a caller, Jackie. Go ahead, Jackie, you are live.
Hi. Thank you for taking my call. You mentioned that part of the tax would be used to acquire new open space. I'm curious to know where in the county would you be acquiring open space?
Sure. Thank you for that question. Coincidentally, we have just completed our open space master plan, and part of it was to develop what we refer to as an acquisition strategy. Now, during that whole process, we identified a number of areas throughout the county that there's a need, kind of a recreational or open space deficit. So we've identified certain areas, but from the standpoint of, when you hear the word acquisition, most people think, oh, you're going to go buy some land. Well, in actuality, there's some nuances to that. We do a number of, particularly in the eastern part of the county, we do conservation easements where the county does not necessarily acquire the property, but they work with the existing landowner to acquire development rights so that certain areas remain in ag production or the conservation values are preserved. So that's part of our acquisition strategy, is to really look at those wildlife corridors, those environmentally sensitive areas, to really invest in those to make sure that they stay wildlife corridors, and of course they stay in pristine or good condition. As far as those areas, particularly in the urban part, where there's a need for a park, there's a need for a trail, that's what we're looking at doing, is particularly from the standpoint as new development happens, that there's a trail link between perhaps a open space that's in a new development and another one. We're responsible, of course, for regional trails, and so that's going to be part of the acquisition strategy. So it's really somewhat nuanced in a sense that not necessarily traditional buying property, but it really is making sure that the community has those amenities that they need, that they're linked together, and of course, again, preserving our agricultural heritage as well as wildlife corridors.
Thank you, Shannon. And speaking of agricultural heritage, one of our guests, Randall Miller, raised the point as we were discussing this event, preparing for it in the last couple of weeks. Mr. Miller, do you want to talk a little bit about the concerns that probably apply to this part of the county more uniquely than it would to other parts of the county?
Yeah, definitely I would. I think it'd be a great question to put out there to both Shannon and Commissioner Baker. I know I've had several conversations with Commissioner Baker about this subject. Whether it's true or not, there is a perception that out here that the county does buy up land at a higher value than what a farmer could buy up land, and there seems to be this thought that there's a competition between a local farmer and, of course, big government buying land. So can you, and I've had it addressed, so I guess I'm just asking if you can explain the process and and maybe some of the stakeholders that are involved on how you go about purchasing the land, if it's outright or if it's just an easement, and how does that look? What is that process? What does that process look like?
I'd be happy to explain that a little bit. In regards to, of course, we only deal with willing landowners, willing seller, willing buyer. And so when we have a project that we're looking at, generally speaking, we've either been approached by that landowner, or it's part of an expansion of an existing holding that either we have or conservation easement that they've taken on. And so when we evaluate that for conservation purposes, as well as trying to meet some of the goals that we spoke of earlier, that is keeping our agricultural heritage going. We always do an appraisal. Okay? We basically appraise the property Usually, both parties decide upon who that appraiser would be, and we really don't go beyond fair market value. So as soon as the appraisal comes in, we look at, okay, what's the fair market value? And generally speaking, we either pay fair market value, and sometimes, actually a lot of times, we'll pay a little below what the fair market value is. And so we really are focusing in on what's a valid appraisal, and then we go at or below fair market value at that particular point. As far as conservation easements are concerned, once again, these are um, projects that either some of the conservation organizations come to us saying that, okay, they're familiar with the community, for example, Cattlemen's and Trust for Public Land, the Nature Conservancy, and others have approached us about conservation projects. And again, it's dealing with willing landowners that want to preserve their agricultural land for conservation purposes. We evaluate that and we see what those values are. And once again, we go through a process of getting it appraised and paying what the market value is.
Shannon, this is Jeff. I'll just add that, nothing warms my heart more than seeing a ranch, a couple hundred acres that a family has owned and had an ag production for generations. And to see the joy on their face when they are told that they can hang on to their land, they have a bad crop year, they've made different business things haven't come through for them. But when we tell them that we're willing to give them a conservation easement and allow them to keep that in their family and preserve that land, it does a lot of good to see the joy that comes on there. Our first preference, of course, is conservation easements, and then we do acquire some land. But again, it's usually when they've approached us, or we hear from Trust for Public Land. They did a series of green printing many years ago that identified lands that should be preserved because of drainages, creeks, north and south creeks, animal migration areas, and things like that. That's the real intent of this program.
Well, and to the earlier point about the county fair, and to the commissioner's point about multiple generations of agricultural and ranching type activities, that's what makes our county fair so special is the 4-H part of it. So certainly we're very interested in continuing that.
Let me just make one more point about, particularly when we have county-owned properties out in the eastern part of our county. One of the benefits and one of the things that's been very successful with the Rich Mill Ranch property, if you go out there on weekends, you'll sometimes see a lot of horse trailers. And so, again, that's where the community uses that property to train their horses, to do horse rides. And that really takes the pressure off of potentially trespassing on private property. And so being able to go to a public park or public open space, the trail ride, then they're not, basically trespassing into areas where they're potentially not wanted. So that's the other benefit of having those types of properties in those areas. And so we hope to expand that a little bit more with our Kiowa Kiowa North project, as well as potentially in our Bijou project. So to be able to do equestrian use on public land is one of those things that we want to make sure that we can do.
Absolutely. One quick follow-up question to our last call about acquisitions. Do we have any specific acquisitions that we can divulge right now that we have not made yet, or that we're planning to do?
Actually, we do have about 3 projects that are in the queue, so to speak. One conservation easement, and a couple of them that are more in the urban area. I'll just say that.
Okay. And as always, keep your eyes on our website for we make announcements when we do make these purchases, and so always keep an eye on that. Keep an eye on the commissioner's newsletter, which is County Line. Hopefully, you've subscribed to that. That comes out every week on Friday. We have time for one more question. I'm going to give you the polling results real quickly here about how satisfied you all have been about your interactions with the Arapahoe County government. 39% have been very satisfied. 13% somewhat satisfied, 26% neutral or not applicable, 13% somewhat dissatisfied, and 9% very dissatisfied. So we will take these numbers to heart, always trying to make them better, and we welcome your suggestions for how to do that. So for our final question, Pearson Online, who would be very likely to recommend living in Arapahoe County, is wondering if more fresh water could be available on some of the trails. This is probably an issue for some of the more expansive ones out east. So what can we tell them about that?
Well, I can probably answer that question a little bit. As we develop properties, for example, the Kiowa North property that we're going to be developing, it depends upon whether we have, as anywhere in the West, water rights. And so if we have the water rights, we try to see if we can get water on those trailheads and drinking fountains, and for both people and their animals too. So when we can, we try to put at least some type of drinking fountain when we have water that's available. And a lot of our properties out east, of course, have more agricultural wells, and so not fit for human consumption. In the urban parts, it depends upon whether we have a tap that's we can go into, Denver Water, Arapahoe County Water and Wastewater. So it really does depend. I do know that the Highline Canal project that we're working on is we've been able to add a number of different spots where you can get water, and we did that with the Cherry Creek corridor too. Our Arapahoe Road trailhead has not only a drinking fountain, but a fountain for dogs and cats or smaller animals that they can use. So we do our best, but it really depends upon whether we have the rights.
Yeah, and of course, water rights are a hot topic all over the West right now.
Yeah.
All right, gentlemen. Well, thanks to all of you. Thanks to Grider Lee and Randall Miller for joining us. Thanks to Commissioner Baker and Shannon Carter. And of course, thanks to all of you who joined us tonight. If you want to watch a recording of this event, it will be available on our website within about 24 hours. And we are going to be doing these in each district. So we've done 3 this week. We have 2 next week. So keep an eye on our website for updates about the open space programs and about the reauthorization process. Thank you very much.
Thank you, everyone.
Thank you.